Okay, we'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of our previous meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is anyone taking minutes today?
Oh, yeah, where's,
Yes, Jordan is on Zoom.
Oh,
He'll be
okay.
taking minutes remotely. So the motion has been made for the November 29th meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained?
do we have to, take a roll call vote because Brennan is remote?
Yeah, I think definitely you're right.
Kyle, can you let in it's under Kristen Murphy.
Kristen Murphy?
Correct. Ahmed, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Because we're on Zoom on a split committee, we'll take a roll call vote for the minutes of 11/29/2023. Ahmed?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
The motion passes. Reports of the administrators. While Lori's getting settled in, we'll just check, see that everyone's been receiving the drive and the information that is available.
Well, I have the latest.
Did everybody see there was an email that got sent out at 5:30? This
I
evening.
think it is.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. I can get more copies. So there's anything more? Thank you. Okay, so, wait, let me know.
Good evening, Lori, yes.
Okay, sorry. There was an email that was sent out, from Misty or Dr. Spence this evening, about an hour ago, that summarizes the changes after we presented our initial budget. We've heard the concern that the 9% increase was too much and not sustainable. And we went back and had some difficult conversations and proposed reductions in equipment, positions, and of course, related benefits, to come bring it down to a 3.18% increase over last year's budget. The document that I just handed out, we had discussed this at the board meeting. It's been updated to reflect the two tax rates that were set after I had prepared documentation for the board meeting. So all of the tax rates are in here are current. It reflects all of the reductions and, proposed changes that we have made. We had some additional discussions today and just reviewing just to make sure I had indeed caught everything, found another position and benefits, answered. Kevin had raised a question in the board meeting. It looks like some benefits were doubled up for an apportioned positions. I took care of that. And so these changes are like hot off the press. You will receive the updated supporting documents in the drive folder. So you have that information for your Saturday meeting. And it will include the reports that are summarized by function and subtotal. I think Jamie explained to everybody that I was having some difficulties with existing reports and I need to build them out. So. I know that you're wanting more information than was provided in the summary from the superintendent, that will be forthcoming. But we wanted to show that we have, we heard you and we made a great effort to bring this down. The increase is almost 1.1 million, which is substantially made up of contractual obligations between the support staff agreement, the teachers agreement, the increase in benefits, and I think there was one other piece. But so this 1 million is really our contractual obligations.
Do we have a sense of, I'm sorry, do we have a sense of the default budget yet?
No, I was working on that. That's why I'm late. I was trying to get that for you. However, the default budget is a calculation. It's based on law, right? And that calculation begins with last year's budget and, you know, you add and subtract the one-time changes. Because we've made so many proposed reductions in positions, those need to come off of last year's, like the formula, our starting point to get to our default budget.
Yeah.
So before I factor those in, we're within about 600,000 between our proposed budget and the default budget. But I need to be very precise with that, because if I grab something I shouldn't, it, you know, is gonna it could create a hardship. So because we moved positions for like programs, so like our steps, our leaps and focus programs, we moved those from buildings and communities to related services. So it's blended out further because they're related services for the district. I don't want to accidentally grab reduction in one account for that, because it was just shifting the employee and the benefits. So I will have that available for the board on Monday. It really is a board document, so that's where I'm at with that.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 3, item 4, budget discussion. What questions do we have at this time for Lori or the administrators who have joined us tonight?
Well, I have a clarification. Jamie had sent a report a couple of days ago
Mhm.
that she just parsed for us differently,
The numbers have changed.
because I spent a fair amount of time
Right.
going through that.
Right. No, the
Maybe 3
numbers,
hours.
the numbers have changed a bit, and I will be sending the
Okay, so
reports, because I
anything
do
that-
know how to run that in the
Any
system.
questions I came up with are no longer pertinent because,
Well, perhaps, I don't know.
well, I don't know either,
Yeah.
because I don't, that's why I want to ask
Okay.
them. Okay, so is a new one coming?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You will have a new one that will be put into the drive folders.
Okay.
For you,
It'll
for
be
your Saturday.
emailed to us as well. Not just placed in the drive folder, but usually email it with.
Or just an email to tell us to look at the trial.
In the folder.
That would suffice.
It's really important that we have this for, actually, I'd like it tomorrow, so we have time to look at it, but
Mhm.
before Saturday. That's the problem right now.
So is this material consistent with what will be in that report? And this is just a
Yes.
synopsis?
Yes,
Okay. So then before those adjustments were made, if I had looked at this chart, I would have seen the tax hike of about 20%, correct?
I hadn't done the chart at that
Oh, you
point.
hadn't done it at
and
that
the old- No, it
Okay,
hadn't
well,
been completed, so it hadn't
Maybe
been
18,
provided.
18. I mean, the sensitivity is $194,000 is 1% of the taxes,
Mhm.
so you cut $1 million what?
Million, it's on the front page, there, 1,074,000.
$1 million one.
Mhm.
All right, so about 5.5% of taxes. So we would have been at 19.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're at 13.5, roughly. And 25% like.
What is that? Do we know
What's that?
why that is
Do I
so?
know? I know in. The answer is probably the short answer is no. I mean, conceptually, I might know what kind of dynamics caused that, but I don't know specifically to this.
I
So,
mean, it's pretty tough on Langdon to see at least probably a $700 or more tax increase on the school side. Not counting increases in county and other things that are gonna happen naturally, but
For the 23.
that's assuming an average home of 200,000, which I don't think is realistic
I don't
anymore.
think so.
Right, so,
So remember that we returned $1.2 million to reduce taxes. It goes directly against the school taxes.
Right.
So that artificially
Increased it.
reduced the tax rate for this year.
Mhm.
So that's gotta be made up in next year.
So that's the cliff that we're talking about.
That's the
Right.
clip that we're talking about. So, I hate these documents and I understand the importance of them, but between now and tax rate setting, there's gonna be valuation changes. We'll have, the close of another fiscal year. We'll know what we're returning. And the likelihood is there will be another sizable return this year because we're still are using ESSER funds this year to, supplement and supplant actually some of our expenses, so. So there's likely gonna be another large, return. I wouldn't anticipate that it's gonna be the 1.2 million. We're trying to aggressively fill those positions, but there's gonna be another return, so these, this is what it looks like now. Can I tell you what it's going to be? No, this is my best estimate at this time with the information we have available.
So if there's another sizable return this year, does that just kind of prolong this
Yep.
idea of the cliff?
Yep.
All right, I just want to make sure that conceptually I
No,
understanding.
yep, no, that is actually, that is absolutely the case. So the difference will be that, going into next year, into the 2026 fiscal year, we will not have the ESSER monies supplementing any of our day-to-day operating expenses. So, that it's gonna offset it a little bit, but yes, the cliff doesn't end
We're just
this
moving
year or
it.
next year. It's, yes.
Can I get a clarification, and possibly this is Xander or you, Lori? We see a reduction of about 300,000 in out-of-district tuition. Can we explain what that is?
Sure, so with our focus program that we created, that's our middle school program, that's housed at Vilas. We were able to bring back 2 students. That cost is approximately $100,000 per student. And then I'm looking at the projection for next year's out of district. We have a student who's graduating, so we won't have that student going out of district. We actually have one other student that's gonna graduate and go out of district, so we won't have that cost. So I took one of the 2 and took another 100,000 off. And that'll leave us an extra 100,000 in that line, just in case we have a student that needs to go out of district. So it's kind of like my little buffer, I built into it just in case. So that's where that money came from.
Thank you, Xander.
Sure.
Does that explanation suffice?
how many new hires are there and where are they?
So, we have, 2 or 3 special ed positions that are new, at CMS, CPS, was there another one? Oh, okay. There's a math teacher, at the high school and in Walpole.
So there's 2 math
There's
teachers.
a SPL, a speech and language, position. We had proposed, a human, resource like benefit, administrator. We've eliminated that from,
Okay, yeah, I'm worried about the ants.
right. So that will all be detailed in the information's available for Saturday.
So it looks like somewhere between maybe 6 and 4 to 6 or 5 to 6
Mhm.
new positions.
Can I ask?
There were positions that we had 5 or 6 positions from ESSER that we wanting to pull into the budget. These positions that I just mentioned are in addition. So there was an ESSER.
The math teacher at the high school was not an ESSER,
Correct.
so that's a new hire.
Correct, that's what I was saying, that the ones that I just mentioned are in addition to the ESSER. The ESSER positions were on a schedule that was shared
Yeah, I
in
saw,
the drive.
yeah.
Okay.
So there was like 6 on that page as well, right?
Yes,
6 or
so
8.
while they're not new positions, they weren't in the budget last year, so they're
So
additions to the
in
budget.
total, we're adding 11 more staff members
Roughly, yeah.
To the budget.
to the budget.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But we went back. That was included on top of the budget in our 9% increase, proposed 9% increase. We went back to the drawing board, and again, we eliminated some of the positions that we wanted to pull over or add. We really took a hard look to determine to prioritize our needs for the students
right.
in the district, and so we are proposing elimination of other positions to offset those additions, so
Right,
it's
but
not the
still-
last
it's a
year's budget.
It's
plus.
still 11 more people going into the budget.
But not, I
But
don't think so,
that's
no.
not the total, that's not the
Right.
net. There are
Right.
people coming out of the budget as well, and positions coming out of the budget.
Okay, so when I looked at the sheet with the ESSER funded people that was passed out, I think there was 6 that were going into the budget.
Yes, and what I'm saying is that since that initial budget that was presented, we have since taken another
Yeah,
deep dive.
Yeah,
So there's gonna be a net, and you'll see that information
Mentioned
for
in the-
Saturday.
okay,
But so you can't just say that all of these bodies are going in. Those bodies are going in, but bodies are going out.
That-
Positions are going out. I don't wanna say
How many of them
bodies.
were ESSER funded are now you're trying to make FTEs?
I think there were 5 or 6 on the list that is in your,
something like that.
You have to, it's in the, I think it's on the drive.
The reductions you're talking about are in this memo from Dr. Spence.
Correct.
That came out. this
Correct.
evening. Okay.
On the revenue report, line 103230, referred to as catastrophic aid, is that what I would know as sped catastrophic aid?
yes, the special ed aid is the
So-
catastrophic
so-
aid.
In 22 actual was 151,304. 23 actual was $180,000 exactly, which can happen, but that's.
Unlikely, yeah.
Really number that we put on the button.
Mhm,
And then the budget for this year is 250,
mhm,
and the budget for next year is 250.
mhm.
But I just heard Sandra say she's reducing out of district placements.
That doesn't mean that it impacts, because we can have out of placement districts
That
that
was the rest of the question.
don't generate.
Yeah, the ones you're pulling
Aid.
back are not driving aid.
Correct.
Okay, so it has no impact on this because that's not the
It's not the level
circumstance.
of need
That's not
of
the,
student.
yeah, so it's a lower level of need where we're on the hook for all of it anyhow.
Correct.
Okay. So I wouldn't see it there. And you said you reduced 300,000 in,
Correct.
okay, and what did it cost us to run the program?
So, give me a second. So this past year, because we put it in ESSER, it didn't cost us much, this current year.
I just meant what it cost regardless of who we're paying for it.
It's gonna take a moment.
Mhm.
I can't find it right there, but I'll find it, but I know by heart.
Just drop it.
Yeah, so basically what we're looking at this year is we have a special education teacher. We have 2 behavior rehabilitative assistants, and then we have paraprofessionals, but they were already with the students because we only got 2 students back. So we have 3 students that were in district that technically might have gone to an out of district placement if we didn't have this program. So when you really look at the cost, let's say it's a special education teacher and those 2 behavior rehabilitative assistants. So, I mean, I'll defer to Laura, I'm gonna ballpark and say approximately $300,000 of the, I mean, it's probably less than that, but I always, I'm going a little higher than lower. By not sending those students out, we saved, in essence, approximately, let's say 300 something thousand dollars. Well, we saved more than that came out of ESSER funds. But I explained in my chart that it's sort of a not true representation because of ESSER funds. So I said, if the coming year with a better representation, long story short, we're gonna save about 162,000 and change, I have the exact number. By having this program going to the 5 schools. If the program grows, we would continue to save more money. It really depends on the staffing that's required and the level of need of student. So right now we have these 2 behavior rehabilitative assistants, and I have 2 paraprofessionals and a teacher. And then we do contracted services for the mental health piece. And, yeah, so that gives you a ballpark. It's kind of low.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Chris, you had a question?
Yeah, Lori, do we have, know what the operating cost is for North Charlestown this year?
No, I don't have that for you. I can tell you that the budget that is here doesn't include any expenses for North Charlestown. It's proposed that that's being combined with Charlestown primary.
No expenses for North Charleston?
There shouldn't be any in that, it's
I didn't see any in Jamie's,
202,
well,
I think.
your version of Jamie's
Right.
parts.
Right.
And everything since then have been cuts, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and in that original document, I inadvertently left capital improvements in there, so those have been pulled out because those are being funded through warrant articles and the capital reserve balances, so.
But nothing that was in that for North Charlestown has been added, if anything has been followed, right?
The teachers would have been added because you're moving pre-K to
I mean,
another building,
yeah,
so.
oh, yeah,
Those are,
yeah.
those
No, I got
positions are
that.
shifting, but it's reducing a custodial, secretarial, and I believe a nurse position. I think,
So,
well,
so just in terms of personnel up there is a secretary up there. There's also a custodian that's unfilled. That'll be coming, both of those will be coming out of the budget. When you look at operating costs, I don't have that, but when we kind of did a rough estimate, it was about $140,000 to $150,000. With those positions in there. So the operating costs are the positions minus the 150,000 minus those positions. So operating costs is around $70,000 if I had to guess. Some of those positions are going to be absorbed in the Charlestown Primary School because we have pre-K coming back, that teacher would stay. The classroom aide would stay in pre-K. So all those positions that are specifically student driven are coming back to CPS.
And what's to become of the building?
we don't own the building,
We don't own the
No.
building.
correct?
Who owns the building?
Charlestown.
Town of Charlestown owns the building.
No,
I'll ask, Alyssa has done some study. Alyssa, can you fill us in on what happens to the building if we no longer use North Charlestown Community School?
In the agreement, when the new part was built by donation from the community, it was agreed upon that if the school was no longer used as an educational facility for the district, it's not classrooms, that it would be handed back over to the town of Charlestown. There's been, it was basically a lease at no cost until we no longer use it.
So on July 1, they would hand it over to the town of Charleston. So that explains why there's no money in the budget to heat it or turn the lights on. Okay. Do they know that though?
Well, that conversation was only recently, when we started talking about that, I believe the 4th of December. So putting that on the warrant, and how that would be worded and how it would work going forward.
I just want to make sure somebody heated it, and we're gonna have a lot of broken,
For sure.
broken pipes, I guess.
That answer your question, Chris?
further discussion.
Yeah.
Beyond these doors is, that's Charles, if it goes back to Charlestown, that's a. I thought it was gonna go to the Farwell Trust, so if it goes to Charlestown, well, that's still a tax burden on Charlestown. Either way, is there a list of facilities personnel and position that we could look at?
I'm sorry,
Facilities, personnel and position?
I can provide that.
That hasn't been shared with the board yet. we're not able to provide that just yet. In terms of personnel and staffing,
Not, you don't want names, you just want FTEs.
FTEs and what they do, a description of what they do.
you'll have somewhat of that, it'll be listed here to some extent, those positions. But the description,
Yeah, whether they're a custodian or a, carpenter or an electrician, that type of stuff.
At the beginning of the year, when I started, you asked for justification for, like certified tradesmen. And that is in the folder that was shared with everybody as well. And I believe that was provided in the binder.
Under enrollment and staff.
Yeah, I was trying to be conservative with the tabs.
We've got, with that, we'll take it up under request for information. We'll reiterate that.
I don't know if it's request for information again, but. Actual versus budget.
Mhm.
For this, up until this point in time.
Mhm.
So I'd like to have it for Saturday if I can have it by then. Been asked for a number of times.
I appreciate your patience and grace.
I understand.
Chris?
And maybe it's already been passed out, did we get a copy of every school's individual budget broken out by location?
Aren't those, aren't there files?
In the drive.
Or is it in the drive?
And those will be updated for Saturday because,
Okay,
those were
thanks.
the changes I made today.
Write that down in big letters.
Yeah, go to the drive.
And just to be clear, because it's a new version coming out, I'm going to move everything that's in those folders now into like an archive folder.
Okay.
So what you see is the
Okay,
current
only the
document,
real ones.
and it's marked as version 1.3 because one indicating that it's the administration's budget that we're presenting. And it's our third version that was coming out, so.
very good increase to 3.1.
That they saw that,
Okay.
so, yeah.
All right.
The version that I've been working on for the last day or two, that you sent out and then Jamie just kind of parsed out.
That was 1.2.
No, that was higher than that. This is, then you made cuts from that.
No, she means version 1.0.
Oh, version 1.2, I'm sorry, not 1.2 meg, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, so,
Thank you.
thank you. So anything, if I were looking at the latest and greatest,
Mhm.
it would be less than that.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't have seen anything added back in.
Correct.
Everything came
Yeah.
out.
So there was some corrections in, related staff, services, and I found that I had shifted, I believe, 3 positions. That from areas that should not have been shifted to related services, so those went back. We did find that we were missing 1, SLP, position, so that was, corrected. She was previously funded through ESSER and was supposed to be funded through budget this year. But that change hadn't made it to payroll, so it didn't come up on my projections. But the net is still a decrease.
Do you mind if I at least read a synopsis of our work? I understand I was a little tardy, had a conscience, but can I just read this for the really public and just it captured the work that we've done thus far. So, and you all have this. So, 2024, 2025 budget overview. The 2024-2025 academic year is unique to the extent that the federal monies that were used to subsidize school districts are set to expire in totality by September 30th, 2024. Because the school system's budget was supplemented by federal monies in 2020, 2021, 22, and 23, there was an unprecedented surplus of funds that were refunded to the taxpayer. Similarly, there was an extensive number of positions that were funded through the ESSER grants in the amount of 1.2 million approximately. As a result, the administration initially presented a budget that included the grant funded positions, which equated to a 9% increase in the overall operating budget. The administration received guidance from the school board and budget committee stating that the proposed budget is not sustainable. Subsequent to this guidance, the administration made substantial cuts in various areas of the organization and reduced the proposed budget to a 3.18% increase. More specifically, the proposed operating budget represents a $1,074,597.69 increase, much of which is related to contractual obligations. Even though we acknowledge that every member of the organization adds value to our community, the administration made reductions that we believed would have the least disruptive impact to student learning and the overall health of the organization. And below there, you see the proposed changes. I just want to put that on record.
Thank you, Dr. Smith.
No problem.
Questions about this document?
This specific document, this one? Well, I mean, let's take the first line, one teaching position, what teaching position?
That, we have not shared that information with the board, and I'm inclined to provide them with an opportunity to see that first.
We also have guidance from.
And we also have guidance from legal because of they're attached to people to, it's in our best interest not to discuss this personally because it relates to personnel matters.
We can take, if there were specific questions, we could take in a non-public to discuss specific positions.
I don't think we can go into non-public.
No?
I don't think so.
I don't think we can either. And I don't know. I think those details help with the overall. The details help, but I don't think they're necessary for us to
Okay, well,
know,
let me ask you
do
differently,
our job.
in a more vague way. One teaching position that you had proposed to add that you're now not going to add, or one teaching position that already exists will no longer exist? Can't answer that either.
This is a position that we were going to add that we've opted not to add.
Oh, okay. That you were going to add, but you opted not to add. Okay. Okay.
Right.
And,
It's-
and I had asked, that the new version is a reduction from the old version. So, without regard to permanent subs, because that's just not an issue. Are we hiring subs next year?
So
I mean, casual subs, day subs, you know, temp.
So I believe that there are numbers in the budget for day subs. So again, I was advised by legal right at the end of the day
So-
that positions aren't really up for
Right.
discussion.
This is
tonight.
a reduction of the 9%.
Yeah.
This isn't a reduction of what is currently happening. This is how I interpret this, so let me know if I'm wrong. So this list is a reduction of the 9% overall increase. They give us the budget with the 9%.
Right.
And then so these are the reductions from that budget, not from what we're currently.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm gonna pose the question differently. When I look in what was sent a couple of days ago, which I know has been cut since then, I don't see any money for subs of any kind in any of the three middle schools or Charlestown Primary. So I didn't know if that was a change in approach or deliberate or.
I will look into that and follow
I'll also, in method one,
up.
there's a ESL teacher in that, which is fine. But there's no medical insurance.
So the new position is 97,000 and it is, all inclusive of the benefits.
But it has dental listed, it has other things listed.
So, that was one correction that I made this afternoon, that I found that I had, when I had moved the individual from one method to another, I had done it, twice.
Okay.
So I had.
It's
removed
in,
it, so
in what
it's
we got,
fixed.
it was an
Yeah.
error. Okay,
It is
that's fine.
in this 3.18% increase.
Okay, it's already included there. Okay.
Guess I'll probably wait for the new document then. Like, I got so many questions, but it's not based on this document. I'm just looking at it.
Based on the right document.
I guess I should wait for the right documents.
Yeah,
But that one, because I didn't see it all, and because you said you would, all you did was make reductions, well, we're already at zero, we couldn't have gone less than zero, so that's why I asked the question about the subs. The rest of it, I guess, has to wait until. Well, see in the documents.
Okay, how? To poll the board, how do we feel about the number put before us of 3.18% increase? Or we,
well, based on what we've gotten so far, right? When I look at the tax rate impacts, it's gonna be, it's significant on the taxpayer. Particularly on towns like Charlestown and Langdon. Right, you look at, just call it a $200,000 home, which I think is pretty low in today's markets out there. Langdon would see a $700 tax increase on a 200,000, that's gonna fly very well. I'm an at-large member, so I'll speak for lots of folks, and same thing with Charlestown, it'd be over a $500 increase in taxes on a $200,000 home. That's just not gonna be comfortable at all. So that's where I think, although the number may sound reasonable, when it hits the taxpayers because of this cliff that was created, it's gonna be devastating, especially to the small communities.
I think it's important for us to also to acknowledge that, we appreciate what the administration has done and that they did hear us, and that when we talked about the 9%, yes, that's a significant, I don't want to take away from the fact that they did a lot of work to get down to the 3.18% increase. And I think that this is really when it comes to the reason that we're here is to balance the interests of the collaborative, right? So we need to just look at the we need to look at the numbers, and we need to make sure that we're doing what we need to do for our students, but we also have to make sure that our taxpayers can afford what we're suggesting. So, how do I feel about it? I to say that, like, to say anybody was, in love with the idea that your taxes are gonna go up, no, I don't think so, but we need to really look at it, and if this is what the school is saying we need to make sure that our students are getting the education and that they need, that we want them to have, then I'm excited to look at the documentation just to kind of trust and verify and go from there. But I feel better about where we are. And I think what we need to do as a board, as a school board, as administration, is to really make sure that everybody understands how we got to where we are, so that then we all are speaking the same language about ESSER and the ESSER funding and, this $4 million hole that we're talking about having to overcome, so that that message is just easier for everybody to understand. I think that's going to be a big step moving forward.
It's an important, communication is gonna be critical.
I agree with Mendon.
so to communicate that going forward, we have We'll have a budget hearing in January,
Mhm.
so that's where we would explain to the people.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and I think that we should talk to, you know, Melissa, and I don't know like how, and Spence administration, like how do we, can we all have the same message about ESSER funding in the clip? Can we do that? I don't know if we can, but
I think it's important that we contextualize how we got here. To some extent, this is a degree of market correction because we were being subsidized by the federal government, and we have to, as a community, acknowledge that when things were being built, whether the question of sustainability was asked or not, I wasn't here to address that. But the administration on our end have done our best job to keep the ship afloat without jeopardizing the integrity of the education system. Do I personally believe that we may have arrived here incrementally, maybe a 53-cent increase there, 25, just as contractual obligations go up, the cost of maintaining our facilities, growth, utilities, et cetera, the cost to maintain our infrastructure. I do believe that we would have arrived around this point. And we're not the only district in this predicament. There are districts all across the United States that are trying to reconcile with the removal of those funds. Even some of the districts from which I came are dealing with the same issues and having the same discussion. So I do think that as a budget committee and the school board and administration, we should meet to really talk about how we're going to convey this to the taxpayer and what those roles look like. So you will help us set the parameters by giving us the budget, school board agrees on it. The administration is in charge of operationalizing that budget. And we try to do so with a budget that's gonna be the least disruptive to students and student achievement. And so that's the part that we have to own, budget committee has to own, saying we set the parameters with respect to the taxpayer. We own how we operationalize that, and we get on the same page about what that message to our communities are. The silver lining in this, I think, once we do this market correction, I don't anticipate us having to do anything that's drastic moving forward because we're building towards sustainability and we're going to monitor this.
like that boiling frog, right? Don't worry, I've never boiled a frog. Lobster, okay, well, everybody here's eating lobster.
I have.
Well, that's too bad for you. Just, what about Jordan? I mean, he's not here, but I don't know if he has anything he wants to include.
Jordan? Would
Yes.
you like to?
I would agree, with, Mr. DeLacio on, I guess, some of the concern for the taxpayer, but I mean, I appreciate Dr. Spence and the administration because it's not an easy job. So I look forward to seeing more information and discussing it more on Saturday.
Any other budget discussion we had tonight? Questions of the administrators? We have building principals here tonight. We can answer questions about individual budgets. Not all of them, correct? Okay. No further discussion. We'll close the budget discussion and move on to our item 5. Maybe brief, but committee member ideas. Chris, you usually have a burning idea or two. Anybody like to share at this time?
I'm just turning the lights up. Okay, it gets dark, I can't see.
Hey, no ideas at the 4. Number 6, request for information. We have the staffing document will be held up for legal reasons and to give the school board first look at it. If I understand that correctly.
Yeah, the school board needs to have the document but I'm also receiving guidance that staffing to an extent is beyond the purview of the committee. And so I'm receiving conflicting information. I'm just telling you what was told to me. Okay, so I get it. I'm just being transparent. It's the only way I know how to be.
It's fair, where's it coming from?
This is coming from legal guidance. This is coming from the School Board Association that the
Okay.
that the budget committee is there to set the parameters to which we have to work. And that the staffing decision should be held. So I just need to follow those.
That-
Right,
conversations.
that's
That's a
true.
true statement.
That's very true. No,
It's- Right,
we don't,
we'll give you the number, you have to figure out how to meet it.
what helps us get to that number is to look at the staffing and the ratios and what that is. So we do not tell you what positions you can or should or can't have. We give you the number, but that's where that information is helpful to say, okay, look, this is how we got here.
Right.
You
How
can
we got
take it
here.
or leave it.
Does the document that we provided, does that, you want more detail, like, so where it says one teaching position, you want to know like what teaching position, classification?
Because if we're gonna look at ratio, right, last year, we talked a lot about ratios,
Yes.
right, and student to,
Well, I could look at that in one of them.
Right.
I think there was a
So-
projection with the number of teachers per
so, so I guess what I'm talking about, last year we talked about it with teachers and students, but for the non-teaching positions, I don't think we had a lot of discussion about that previously.
I think we got a document that said, gave class and class sizes. That it was there.
Yeah.
And that was one of the questions. I thought there was, is there a, within the school policies, I thought there was a class size requirement that if it went down to a certain level, the class goes away. Or should be held. Do
Yeah,
you know what
and
that
it aligns
number
with the
is?
state. Oh,
This class size policy.
Do we know what the number is in the class size?
It's part of the minimum standards, for school approval. So for elementary levels, it's up to, grade 4, it's 25, per class, striving for 20.
Okay. That's not quite, I thought there was a minimum class size for a class, right? To have
high school.
For the high school, I'm sorry. For the high school, there was a minimum class size to hold the class.
I believe that's up to 30.
yeah, I was saying that.
Oh,
Minimum, yeah.
Minimum, yeah.
Yes, we do have that as well. I think it's 10
And
to run
to run a class, something like that, okay.
Without a waiver.
without a waiver from the school board.
Okay,
It's all courses with an enrollment below 6 students will be submitted by the superintendent of schools to the board.
all right, so it's six.
Six.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Below 6, so it's 5.
5.99. It's fine.
But Dr. Spence, does that clarify too what we're talking, like, the guidance you're getting is not wrong. And so,
Yeah, Steve, as to what extent do we go into the weeds about staffing decisions and, you know, which teacher and that? And so that's what I'm trying to refrain from, just provide a general overview. So here you'll see, you know, 2 non-union positions, that, to that extent, the details, you know, where the changes are. And but I guess what I'm asking is, are you looking for something more specific than just a teaching position or a non-union position?
I guess if. I'm not right at this second, but I think
I'm
that,
certainly not looking for names.
no, right, so like,
I don't need any names.
I don't know, if we had, you know, 30 people in our, you know, math team, you know, I'm trying to create an example that's not gonna, obviously be in existence, but if you had 30 people that were making up the math team department, then, we wanted to look at that, and then we would wanna know, okay, well, 5 of them are teachers and 3 of them are support staff and 2 of them are custodians and to look at that, but I don't know if I have any specific questions right now related to that. I don't know if I'm being clear or not, but
think what we don't want to do is just give you a number.
Right.
Without us having to figure out, how do we get to this number? How could you get to this number in a reasonable way? You know what I mean?
I think that's where, and forgive me, this is my first time going through this process. But I think that's for where I think it's a little, it gets blurry for me, because if you set the parameters, the administration has the authority with approval from the board to reoperationalize everything. So I might tell you now, when we're looking at this, but you set the number, I might say, you know what, we gotta actually change direction. School board, give me guidance, is this okay? So it's almost, I don't wanna marry to these, what we're proposing. This is our thinking documented right here. We thought about this and we documented that. To the extent to what those changes will be concrete is subject to our baseline operating number. It may change, but it may not. We might look and do things differently with guidance from the school board, of course.
We just don't wanna give you a number that's totally unreasonable. The voters are going to ask, how did you get to that number?
Right.
And we have to have an answer.
My question is, does this, the document, we just look at this, does this provide a sufficient map for how we have arrived at this number?
Yeah, this is good.
So,
As far as I'm concerned, this is good.
Okay.
I mean, I would have some more questions about this, for some details, but yeah.
Go on request for information. We'll have some,
What's coming Saturday, I guess, would be a good question. We know version 1.2 or whatever it is coming, thank you.
1.3.
Excuse me. What else is coming Saturday? Hopefully before Saturday.
Let's see what information I have.
Is the laundry list of the major ups and downs coming?
Yeah.
Good, okay.
There'll be more information there, by location, function. You'll have the year-to-date to actual.
that's the actual versus budget
For this year, yes,
for this year.
yes.
Other information we need at this time?
I mean, the year to date, it's summarized, but that's available in our board minutes for the last 2 or 3 months, but.
The actual versus,
It's a summary.
yeah, I wanna see it all the way through,
Mhm.
so. It's an electronic file, so it should be a straightforward report, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Give us a sense of what we're really spending.
Any other requests for information?
So we had a robust discussion about the number of students and teachers last year, fairly robust and lengthy. So I'm assuming particularly the principals over there that were involved in it, that understanding of how many teachers per classroom, per grade level, based on the number of students, so, and we got some of that information. Are we getting that information again? Or is it somewhere that the amount of information that's
The
got?
ratio, student to teacher ratio?
Yeah,
Yeah, we can provide that. Did we provide that?
I thought we had, I'm just double checking. I mean, I know we provided the projected, our BOI numbers for this year, roll them forward. I thought we also included teachers, but I will double check that.
FY 24 teachers per building. So it's in this year's folder
okay,
under staffing,
Yeah, which is also in the
enrollment
drive.
and staff.
so ultimately it is, do you have, a third grade have 30 kids and you have 3 teachers, or do you have 2? I mean, those are what we're looking at, because we're gonna say you only need 2. And that's how we did it last year, so I would go, well, reduce the budget. So those types of things. That's what, you know, that's how we played those number
Yeah, but-
lines last year.
In the end, we're gonna come up with a bottom line. And once we do, and the public says, blessed, the bottom line gets handed over to the school board, or hands it over to the administration, and then it becomes your choice to do with that money as you see fit and not follow any of the guidance that we came up with as to how do we arrive at that bottom line, and we know that. So when we say, oh, we think this is possible, we think that's possible, and that's how we arrive at the bottom line, we know full well that that may not be the way it gets executed.
Right.
We just know it's how we got there. I just don't know that I feel like I have, knowing that once we get to the bottom line, it's not ours anymore, and the way it gets executed is in the hands of the board and the administration. I'm having a hard time figuring out how to get to that point, based on this information. And I know there was a budget committee 10 years ago that I sat on, and we did exactly what you said. We said, well, that's too much, cut this. That's not responsible to just say,
Right.
you know, cut this amount.
It's not.
We should at least, these members should at least say, okay, well, we looked at it and we think this is possible. So we're gonna fund what we think is possible. And that knowing full well that how it gets executed may not look anything like that. And knowing full well that we don't have the power to, you know, to do that. And also knowing full well that the school board has the power to put on Article 2, 3, 4, adding back in things that we may have left out. And if they can get the public to support that, those things will be included as well. We don't really control the whole budget. We control Article 1, the budget article. The school board is still free to put in Articles 2, 3, and 4 to their heart's content with this, that, and the other thing. And we have the only say we have over that is whether we recommend it or we don't recommend it. And it would be reasonable to assume we would have recommended it, or we would have put it in our budget in the first place, of course. So those articles would face a little bit of headwind in that they would probably, well, they would say the school board supports, the budget committee does not support. And then it goes to the public with that split recommendation. So you know, the school board is not even prohibited from including things that we may have excluded. It's just, it'll be through that path, through a different path. But I don't know, I'm finding it difficult to, I don't know what the right number is. And I don't want to pull a number out of the air, it'd be nice. So, you know, but I don't know how to get from here to there without enough of a roadmap to see what's possible.
We don't have a clear roadmap at this time.
No, I don't, I'm sorry.
Just to reiterate, what added documentation would make that roadmap clearer? Is it?
Well, Chris touched on it, a list of, without anybody's names, because I don't care, it doesn't matter who's in the position, but, you know, here's how we staffed this school with X number of teachers that have X number of students. Is that reasonable? And if we say, well, no, we think, you know, probably one less could happen, we would fund it that way, but it's not necessarily how it gets executed. The school, you or the school board might say, no, we'll find cuts in other areas, so we can leave that alone, and we accept that, we know that.
So,
But I don't feel like we can see it to reach those conclusions.
so just for my own understanding, just to recap, it sounds as if you're saying you'd like to see the teacher to student ratios to determine the extent to which the budget committee feels that that class size is sufficient.
We have,
Is that?
last year at least, we had the smallest class size of any school district in the immediate vicinity. Class size is a factor. Class size is nice to have small class sizes. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that small class sizes aren't better than larger class sizes. It just becomes a question of balance again as to, you know, what bang for the buck, what are you getting for? When I put 14 students in a class as opposed to 20, or as opposed to 10, or, you know, what does that cost? And how educationally valuable is it relative to what it costs? And I mean, that's the way I would look. Otherwise, you know, let's cut the class sizes down to 5, because that would be better. You know, we know smaller is better. I mean, I guess that would limit how many rooms we have, because if you cut them down too small and you don't have enough rooms to put them in, then that's a governing factor, but
We've got plenty of space at the moment.
yeah, I understand that,
Well,
I just,
plenty is a relative term. I think the administrators have done wonders with the space they have.
I think that we are in a little bit of a shift here too, because I think that with the new administration and this being the second year the budget committee is in, and really talking about sustainability, right? And that sustainability planning, we asked a lot of questions last year about sustainability and what was our plan and what was the district going to look like in the next 5 years, the next 10 years. And I think that when we talk about, when we're looking at the budget, yes, we're looking at this current or the next year or the next school year for the budget, but also looking at, again, that partnership with the board and with the administration to say, okay, what is the plan for the school year and how can we fund that sustainably? And so I think when we're talking about those declining enrollments and where we're going and what does that look like? Again, as a budget committee, we don't decide that, but it's helpful for us to know what the plan is as we move forward so that we can, you know, basically it's like a trust but verify, right? Like you're telling me it's gonna cost another $1 million to do what we need to do for the kids. Okay, yes, I trust you, but I'm gonna verify what you're doing. So, I think that's kind of where we are in this shift and this potential collaboration with these three bodies to kind of figure out, because this isn't just yes, we're talking about the budget for the next school year, but this isn't gonna be a problem that we're gonna solve just by passing a budget this year. We're gonna have this discussion again and again and again, unless we have a larger roadmap, if you will, so that we can build a path to sustainability for the district. And so,
The information that we were just asking for, we've been given for the high school already.
Who directed that?
What's that?
Who gave you that information?
It was on, given to us in one of the files. Has the teacher's name, the department, the teacher's name, the number of students, the number of classes. The teacher's teaching, how many kids are considered, in need, is in that same document. So I think the only thing we're asking is,
we actually got more than we asked for.
we got what we asked for the high school, so we're just asking for the elementary schools. The rest of the schools, the same information.
It was in the justification, position justification for math.
So.
So I just wanted to piggyback on what you said. I do think that the long-term strategic planning by balancing the needs of the district with a finger on the extent to which it's sustainable is where I believe the budget committee functions, because we'll put these changes in or whatever the vision is, and we have to question to what extent it is sustainable, and only you as representatives of the community can determine the extent to which that is. I will say, we will get the information regarding the class size ratios, but it's not, there are multiple variables at play. And whatever the direction comes back, it will force a quicker shift of management to achieve whatever the number is if it goes lower, and that's just being fully transparent. And there are other effects and impacts to that, depending on how quickly the system is forced to move and change. The administration spent weeks at this point diving into this budget, looking at which areas would be least destructive to student learning under the current configuration. You have a large geographic imprint, and we are sustaining that. And sustaining that is costing us. So it's a consideration as we're thinking about that. You know, I understand you're charged with the job, but I also have to think about tension. I have to think about, you know, work, the load, what's manageable, compliance with IEPs, et cetera. It's just a whole host of other factors. So just something else to consider, but we'll give you the information so you can at least see the ratios, but it's not just the number of ratios, because it's also tied to what the instructional model is. What is the instructional model? So anything's achievable, it's just to what extent, what pace, and what is sustainable from a human capital standpoint within the organization. There's so many variables, but we will get you the information, and I do think that we will be better for it. It'll be a better marriage once we have our strategic plan long term. It'll all blend. It won't be one or the other. It'll just blend, I think.
That's the hope. I believe you treat people as they are, as they ought to be, and you help them become what they're capable of. I believe we've had significant amount of work by the administration put into this budget. It is some blind faith on my part to trust 3.18% increase that education can be done for that amount with the contractual obligations, which is the majority of it. Personally, I will say that I can stand behind this number with the understanding that the principals have found it, the administration has found it. So there is more information to come forward. There's more discussion to have. But I don't see what substantial changes at this hour we are going to make to the program. Dr. Spence is, in conversations with Dr. Spence, he's made it clear to me that, as he just said, these things are on a timeline. If we want to make significant changes, we can gear up for that. And whatever committee comes together next year with the rest of this term, and then next year's, we start making those long-term substantive changes. But to go and cut further into this budget, I can't support at this time.
You got a sense of the rest of the board then? I mean, if somebody wants to work Saturday, we don't have to.
Yeah, but I don't think that was any, we don't have, the whole board isn't here, right? James not here.
This is one on the horn.
Yeah.
James.
So listen, Jamie.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think we can just do that.
no, we
I
need
don't
to,
think that's doing our jobs.
no, we need to look at
That's
it.
fine.
We need to
I think we gotta look at it and verify that what we're seeing in the budget documents makes sense. You may be right, I don't know, because I haven't seen a document yet that in its final version, or in a version that, 3 days ago, we got a version, now it's changed again. So until we see a stable version, which I believe will be, before the end of the week. I think that's how we have to do it, it's part of our job. You may be right, that we're not gonna make any substantial cuts or anything of significance, but we still have to go through the process. At least that's my opinion.
I would agree with that, to do our due diligence.
Yeah.
For the elected,
As elected. yeah,
Yes.
Right. And our statutory requirements.
Right.
The other part of it too, it's not about reducing the budget, always about reducing the budget. Part of our responsibility is when we look through these things, we find mistakes, we find errors that could shortchange the budget, which is just as bad as being the other direction too. And I think having another set of eyes on these things is always good to look at and see. Just as a side note, the budget committee added, I think, $35,000 to the budget last year for extra supplies for the teachers. And it would be nice to know how that's being administered. If it stayed in by the school board, if they did do something with it.
So I can tell you it's not separately administered, it would have gone into the budget for the
Okay,
building.
all right, so,
For supply
so
budget for
maybe
the
just
building,
got
I'm not
absorbed,
tracking
maybe
it
just got absorbed
separately.
into the normal general fund and disappeared, but okay.
I wouldn't say it
That's-
disappeared,
That's
it
the
went into
case.
the
Okay,
budget for
that's
the
fine.
intended purpose, and
Yeah.
it's being managed locally by the local administration, but I'm not tracking $25 per staff member
No,
separately.
no, right, I don't expect it. We did put money in last year
Mhm.
for that specific reason. So it isn't always about removing money either.
So to do our due diligence, we will meet on Saturday. Let's review what information we need. Lori, can you tell us what you have so far?
So, well, I have what's in your binders, but I'll have the updated, budget, version 1.3. Printed out by method, with the subtotals by function, I believe is how you see it, is by function and not object code. And so that will be available to you. It will be available in Excel as well as the pretty format. There'll be the, actual year-to-date versus budget through, November, most current month. We will, if I understood correctly, we'll work on getting a teacher-student ratio list pulled together. I get, those are the key pieces right now, right, that you're looking for?
Anyway,
And the laundry list is like a little more detailed summary of the changes. I've also need to pull together a list of positions shifted from sites into related services in a district, absorbed by the district versus an area attendance area.
well, that suffices. Okay, so,
I would like to see the list though for facilities
Mhm.
and the personnel, whether or not by name or not, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Because there's a new, we also looking at new strategies, and I think the district has to look at new strategies. And maybe outsourcing some of this as other districts do.
Mhm.
Some of the work, would be financially beneficial. And also perhaps better for our district, so, I think I'd like to see the list of facility personnel.
The facility FTE positions, not personnel.
Yes,
Or they're separate.
that's what, yes, that's what he knew.
Okay.
okay, facility FTE positions. Good, is there anything else to come before this meeting tonight? Nothing, we'll call us adjourned at 7:49. Thank you, Administrator